Hello, my name is Oscar Fire, and maybe I'm a little too tired to do this, but I don't care because I want to record things, and I am going to spend a little bit of time recording because I have 3 videos that I want to make, and I want to make them before I lose the desire to do them. Admittedly, it'd be nice if I just disciplined myself and did it. Anyway, hello, my name is Oscar Fire, and today we are going to talk about Altered Carbon. More precisely, we're going to talk about the 3 Takeshi Kovacs novels that starts with Altered Carbon. But we're going to call it the Altered Carbon trilogy for the sake of ease and shorthand. So, I'm not really sure because I don't want this to drag on as long as the first Kei Shinara did. But I am talking about 3 different books here, obviously. Oh gosh, the shine from my light. Oh my gosh. There we go. Got it. I flipped it the right way, but the shine. You could see the ring. There we go. Got it. Camera. Anyway. But I want to talk about them because, you know, I've read all 3 now, and honest to goodness, I actually really enjoyed them. So I'll roll through the first 2 kind of quickly because I read them a while ago and I don't really remember them all that well. And Woken Furies is definitely the book I remember the best. But I'm gonna kind of I'll touch base on the first 2. So Altered Carbon. I kind of want to start with a funny story about that because, so I read at work mostly. I don't really read at home too much. I kind of probably gonna change that habit soon. But I mostly read at work on my lunch break because we get really long lunch breaks at Walmart. And my mother had sent me this book and she's like I've been watching the show on Netflix and I decided to read the book and I really enjoyed the book, right? So I'm reading the book and oh hello, I forgot I left a note that my mom left in the book for me. Anyway, but I remember I remember reading it I remember reading it at work. And I'm going through it. And I'm and I think it was a chapter 6. I think I just flipped to it or something like that. And the thing that caught me off guard was that there's a graphic sex scene. And mind you, I'm at work, so this is it's no one knows what I'm reading necessarily, but I'm just thinking, what the hell? Why did my mother recommend me this book? I was legitimately very confused. I mean, I powered through it and everything. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have read erotic elements in fiction before. It's just one of those things where it's I wasn't expecting it in this. I wasn't expecting it to be so graphic, and I was at work. So it was definitely not something I was prepared for. But you know, once I got to Woken Furies, I was basically used to it. But yeah, so for the most part, I kind of meandered a little bit there. But so for the most part, I enjoyed Altered Carbon. It was okay. It's my least favorite of the 3 books. I actually really like mysteries, though I don't actively seek out mysteries. I generally speaking like mystery plots. And I didn't think this one was very good. Mystery plotting is definitely not Richard K. Morgan's strong suit. You know, he's not that's not his great. It's not it's one of his strong skills. It was good enough. But I kind of thought that you know, Kawahara, the what was it, Yakuza from Harlan's World, kind of cropping up there at the end was a little bit awkward. It wasn't. She didn't properly slot into the story, unless I missed something. I could have missed something, but I didn't feel like she properly slotted into the story there, and it kind of was just kind of came out of nowhere to me. But I mean, it was an okay book, okay enough that when my mother said that Broken Angels is actually better than Altered Carbon, I decided to read. Dropped it. And anyway, when she said that Broken Angels is better than Altered Carbon, I decided to take her word for it. And she was right. More graphic sex, but that's only 1 scene in the book. I think there's only 1 or 2 scenes in the book. 2 scenes. But it's much better. But it's also because Broken Angels more clearly touches on the things I like in sci-fi. It much more clearly touches like it's with like the alien technology, the alien spaceship, you know, bizarre esoteric technology that no one understands, you know, stuff like that. That connected with me on a you know, much better than like the sort of, not boring, but the the uninspired, I almost felt like, mystery plot in Altered Carbon. You know, I mean, in Altered Carbon, of course, the mystery plot isn't like unoriginal. Of course it is. You know, it uses technology of the day to kind of establish itself. But I just didn't. Like I said, it didn't connect with me. But Broken Angels does. All the technology and everything, I thought it was fascinating. The new human technology, I thought that was all very fascinating. And I enjoyed this a lot more. I enjoyed this a lot more. Incidentally, I should go back actually, because I should mention this when I was reading Altered Carbon. So, for those of you who play the video games, you may recall from some years back now, probably 7 years back now, you may recall a game called Soma. For those of you who don't, Soma is basically about a man who basically is like diagnosed with brain cancer, but he basically has his consciousness copied into a computer, which then gets kind of accidentally downloaded into a robot deep under the sea in the distant future after the Earth's been hit by a meteor. And it's a horror game, and I've never played it myself, but I did watch it. I did watch like Markiplier play it. I watched Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie or someone. I watched someone else play it as well. And Soma is a very, very good game because it calls into question the nature of existence and human consciousness, and does human consciousness continue to exist after the death of the brain? And one of the things that really kind of creeped me out in the game was the fact that at the very end of the game, in the middle and at the very end of the game, basically you have the character has to copy his consciousness into a new body. The problem is that, of course, because it's all computers and everything, basically his previous existence gets left behind. And when you make that jump, you kind of realize, oh, wait a minute, this other version of me is still stuck where he was, because because the world is dying, basically, you know, and this deep sea research facility and supply facility are basically like the last remnants of like human civilization. And mind you, all the people are dead. You know, most of them are consciousnesses that have been copied into robots at this point. But pretty much all the biological humans are dead here, and like everyone on the surface is dead from the firestorm and the tidal waves and everything. But yeah, the game addresses this, and it's like, and it's kind of horrifying because like you leave a copy of yourself behind to get into a more highly pressurized suit, and then in order to get into like this orbiting arc, basically a satellite, that has like a virtual reality to live in, to get, you know, to upload your consciousness, your previous iteration is left behind deep under the sea in a body that is destined to lose power eventually, and basically you're left all alone. Like you have a companion throughout the game who is also copied into a computer consciousness, but she gets disabled, short circuits like at the very end, and you're left all alone. And it's all very existentially. There's a lot of existential dread in that. And Altered Carbon very distinctly reminded me of Soma, and it actually weirded me out. So, you know, because I mean, you know, I'll tell you right up. I take the Christian. I believe the Christian ethos when it comes to the existence of the soul and life after death, and the idea that humans are more than just the machine. We are more than just the biological machine that carries our consciousness around. And of course, games like Soma and books like Altered Carbon, you know, flip that idea on its head. In Altered Carbon, of course, you know, the Catholics, for example, are just kind of like a fringe religious minority at this point, and not treated very kindly because of it, because they don't allow resleeving or allow people to have cortical stacks inserted into them, and it's in universe, Catholicism comes across as very foolish. And I'll tell you right now, if any sort of like major technological innovation were to come about, that completely defy like any sort of religious beliefs, like human religion would probably die overnight because it would be disproven. Now, I don't think that will ever happen personally, but I do consider such things. I do consider such things a possibility. If there's, if an advent of world events occurred that defied like the Christian end times or the Muslim end times or whatever, like you would see those religions dissolve very quickly. I think, you'd have stubborn people, but it would be hard to kind of resist that sort of reality slapping you in the face. But yeah, I was reminded of Soma though, and like, I'm not gonna lie, like that sort of existential dread, and especially when Kovac double sleeves himself to get rid of Kawahara, it's very, oh, okay, that's a little messed up. And I couldn't help, and for the entire book, I couldn't help but consider the fact that, unless it's the same cortical stack, like getting kind of transferred, that like, is this really the same consciousness, or is this a copy of a person? After all, double sleeving exists, and that's two copies of the same person. Do you see, it's the same sort of philosophical question that arises with transporters in Star Trek, where your entire body is broken down to its constituent parts and then reconstituted in another place. Doesn't that mean you technically die? Doesn't that technically mean that you die when you get transported every time? There's a philosophical question that, actually Star Trek never really addresses. It brings it up a couple of times, but it never addresses it, and I think that's a missed opportunity, really. But yeah, so that's something there. Now, Woken Furies. Woken Furies is actually my favorite. I'm actually shocked. I didn't know what to expect after Broken Angels, but Woken Furies is so much better than the other two books. I think it's partially because Woken Furies is more personal. Because, so first of all, like the first book goes straight right in, Tak is from Harlan's world. He's at least in some way a Quellist. I don't know what Quellism is. There's he has all this history, Virginia Vidara, all that stuff. That's all brought up in the previous two books. Woken Furies finally addresses it, and that personal element does so much for it tickles my desire to know more about the universe of Altered Carbon, about the world of Takeshi Kovacs. I think it's done really, really well, and it's such an expansive novel too. It's longer than the others by a considerable margin. It's over it's like 450 pages, whereas even Broken Angels, which is I think slightly longer than Altered Carbon here, is only like 350. But he's like goes on like but it's like Richard K. Morgan wanted to explore Harlan's world because it's like probably the first planet he ever created. Besides Earth, he probably had an idea for Earth, but Harlan's world is probably like the first world he created, and he clearly wanted to explore it in depth, and we get like a clear view of most of the planet's geography, most of its primary land masses, if you could call the island chains that, and its cities and all that. We get a clear view of what Quellism is. We meet, Quellchris Falconer. We get a sense of, we understand what we learn about the Martian orbitals that keep there from being like a space program in the system. All sorts of things. It's really, it's really deep in depth, and the previous, it's like a good conclusion to the build up, to the introduction and build up of Altered Carbon and Broken Angels. I think it's a really solid read. I actually loved it. I actually legitimately loved it. There's more sex in this than ever before. And truth be told, throughout the entire series, I felt like the sex scenes were a little gratuitous. I feel like I feel like Richard K. Morgan was just looking for an excuse to write some pornographic content in his otherwise entirely accessible novels. And I just like, it's like, yeah, you're just, there's no need for this. You don't need to have the hardcore pornographic sex scenes. There's no, I don't need to know about the, it's fine. You don't have to do it, Richard. But he did do it, and it's tolerable enough. But I just, I'm on it. But yeah, I thought like all the twists and the turns and the betrayals and everything, I almost felt like it should have gotten tiring after a while, but it wasn't. It was very like each twist and each new turn was very, like, it felt natural. It felt like a natural extension of the tale. You start with Tak in a synthetic body, and he ends up falling in with Decom and and Sylvie Oshima, and it goes from that to they go into the Uncleared, and they go from there and they come back, but now Tak is being hunted down by a copy of himself, and and he tries to go into hiding. And I miss Dig 301. Dig 301 being the virtual construct in the archaeologue camp. For a character, for basically not really a character, Dig 301 was a fun character. Like the idea that, there's basically this virtual intelligence being programmed with entirely human behaviors, like being interrupted and just like pausing, mouth hanging open, and then kind of getting miffed about it. Like, I love that. It's kind of like almost a C-3PO kind of character, albeit more helpful. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm playing this bottle. I should not be doing that. What am I doing? Yeah, but very, very, very enjoyable. There was definitely like, and then like, Tak seeking out the old Quellis and everything, and finding Virginia Bedora, who we've heard tons about since you trained him, and then we meet her, and it's like, and then he has sex with her, but it's like the book really connected with me in the way it kind of fleshed everything out, and then and the raid on what is it, Rise Crags, whatever it is, and then they're ambushed there, but then it turns out they kind of counterpunched, and they had done they had done their own little operation to give themselves leverage. Like, I thought that was great. It was all great, and then finally going towards the end, they're betrayed by and Tak is betrayed by Segisvar, and then that final battle. It's like, it's really, really well done. And it's very well paced. It slows down where it needs to slow down. And then the action is really is kind of like, oh, what's going to happen next? It's like, oh, what, is Tak outmatched? Or is he gonna succeed? Is he gonna defeat his his twin, basically? His identical twin? Like, what's gonna happen here? I can't say it enough. I legitimately loved this book. It was good. And it was funny in points too. It definitely had its amusing moments. I feel like comedy sometimes is a little hard to get across in writing. It doesn't make you chuckle, like it's not going to make you laugh like a visual stimuli will. But there's a couple of moments here where I definitely got a nice little chuckle out of it, or like got a nice, like at least smiled. And I also like how everything kind of ends up tying together in the end. For example, the fact that, like, Tak runs into decom at the beginning, and then at the end, it's like, oh, by the way, this is the technology that unlocks everything. And it could potentially unlock, like, a potential actual Quellist uprising, and everything. And I like how, like, sort of Takashi's perspectives and like perspective kind of evolves over the course of the story, where he's constantly resisting the idea of, like, becoming more than he has been, because basically the story kind of establishes that, when he washed out of the Envoy Corps, basically his life kind of fell apart, and he just became like a petty criminal over and in different capacities. Of course, he was of course he became an investigator, at one point, and everything, and, a soldier for hire in the second book. But even then, there's definitely like there's definitely like an arc to Tak's character throughout the book, where it's like, it's like he's just kind of, it feels like he's kind of like, he's given up on humanity. And then he meets Nadia Makita, Chris Faulkner, and he's kind of like has almost like this, he almost had, he's almost like he's backslidden, and he returns to the fold for a bit until he realizes that maybe she's not real, and then he becomes cynical again, but in reality he's just resisting the call to become something greater again, to become, a revolutionary. And then at the end of the book, the revelation that it is the real Nadia Makita, and that the orbitals, in fact, are like their beams actually copy everything, they disintegrate. I think that's like, it's like, okay, wow, that's fascinating. And of course, it all ties in because decon technology at the beginning ties back into the fact that it's the key to unlocking the orbitals and everything, and it's just. It's a very fascinating story, and I like how the book ends on like a little. I like how the book ends on a little hopeful note where, it's basically Takashi's internal monologue. Okay, just completely skipped the last page there. That's great. Like how it's an internal monologue and how everything's gonna change, and how this uprising, rather than being crushed by the envoys, instead has an extremely good chance of actually succeeding for the first time ever. Because of course the UN Protectorate is an extremely corrupt oligarchy that uses military force to enforce its will and maintain the status quo. Sounds nothing like the UN today, doesn't it? But startled me. But it's I like how it ends with a little personal, hopeful note, where, because of course his love interest at the beginning of the entire series, Sarah, of course is of course killed like he is, but he gets needle cast to Earth, and she is doing this penance on Harlan's world, and she ends up converting to the to whatever the religion is, New Revelation, I think it is. And of course, they don't believe in resleeving like the Catholics back on Earth, but they're a little more psychotic about it, and end up, tossing her and her daughter's stacks into the sea somewhere they can't find it. But Tak hopes that with the super advanced and highly precise technology of the orbitals, that maybe one day they can find her again. And I think that's a very sweet note to end it on. Even if it feels kind of hollowed out by the fact that, there's a lot of casual sex for Tak in this story. There's a lot of it in this story, and it feels that that level of commitment is at odds with his his tendency to not really be tied down otherwise. Super great book series. I also like this book's analysis of what revolutions are like, and what they require, and how they fall apart. I think that's all really very fascinating. I like how basically Quellism is basically neo-Bolshevism. Like you read it, it feels distinctly like Not like of all, like, it feels like sort of like the Communist Revolution, but specifically the Bolshevik Revolution, minus the part where they won and then screwed everything up afterwards. But it has the same like sort of hopeful idea, but also the same sort of brutal method and manner to it. So yeah, very fantastic book series. I feel like I didn't go very deep, but I'm also trying to kind of hold this back under half an hour. So I'm kind of trying to wrap it up here. But I absolutely recommend reading these books. They are very good stories, very entertaining stories. I very much enjoyed them. And truth be told, I wish there was more. I wish that I could absolutely do with a Coda story that kind of addresses the consequences of the events in Woken Furies. Because it's very good. So anyway, I'm gonna add this to the bookshelf. Put the order around here. And slide them in here. I just realized I probably should get some mothballs or something. Anyway, all right. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching. This has been the first King of Shannara does not want to stand up. And there it goes. Okay. Anyway. All right. Yeah, I want to thank you all for watching, though. This is I enjoy doing these book reviews. Even if they don't get like a super amount of views, it's not about the views. It's about the content. It's about enjoying what I'm doing. It's about making a project that I enjoy doing. And this is absolutely a project that I enjoy doing. So I want to thank you for watching. Next time we meet for book reviews, it will probably be The Scions of Shannara. That is the next book on my docket. And so I shall read. Anyway, thank you for watching. I am definitely recording multiple videos this session, so expect at least one more video this week, maybe two. Depends on how I feel after the next video I record. But that one should be a relatively short one, so please look forward to it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and until next time, everybody.